It's my pleasure to welcome to Wilshire this morning Dallas City Council member Casey Thomas. Casey, we're so glad that you're with us. And I had invited Casey because of Martin Luther King weekend and because of something else you're going to hear about in just a moment, which is completely coincidental to the fact that we just read this passage from Isaiah, which is part of the lectionary's text for this week. Extraordinary, right? Sometimes God is mysterious to us, well, always, really, isn't it? But Councilmember Thomas is in Council District number 3, yes, and at Southwest Dallas, and he has been a tremendous advocate for inclusion and equity in Dallas and fighting poverty efforts, and is chairing the Housing Committee now. And he's going to tell us some important things about what's been going on, because tomorrow night we were going to be the first of the 4 meetings this week to introduce to the community the racial equity audit that has been done to inform the housing policy of Dallas. And of course, we've had to go virtual. So it's going to be at City Hall. You can go to that, but you can also tune in because we're always making adjustments. Councilmember Thomas, welcome. We're so glad to have you. And tell us a little bit about what this work is you're doing and why we should care about it.
Sure. First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to say thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here, be with you. And as I customarily do, I always want to acknowledge those who allow us this opportunity. So give your pastor a round of applause for his leadership, his service. God will send you one, but it won't be like this one. So we appreciate the one that you have. So it's a pleasure once again to be here, and Pastor, it's an honor to serve, and I like to say, on the City Council in the city which I was born and raised in. I'm a native of Dallas, and so this work has been important, this work on racial equity and inclusion. We started this work maybe about 3 years ago when we established our office of equity and hired our chief equity officer, first one in the city of Dallas. And we began looking at what it would take in order to make Dallas a whole city. In order for Dallas to be a whole city, Dallas must be an equitable city. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our work and we're implementing the type of policies that's going to make Dallas a whole city. And so about a year ago, I was appointed chair of the Housing and Homeless Solutions Committee. And so at our first committee meeting I was chair of, I requested a racial equity audit of our comprehensive housing policy, because when we established our housing policy, we did it more because it was required because of some investigation that HUD had done. And when we established that policy, we established it more to be compliant as opposed to look at how this policy would impact communities of color and underserved communities. And now around October, we received the first draft of the report. And we're going to begin having a series of town hall meetings. And unfortunately, as you stated, we were not going to be able to have the first meeting here. I was honored when your pastor accepted the offer to host this first important meeting here, but we've had to shift, as we have so many times over the past 2 years, to a virtual space. And so we will have it at City Hall. Anyone who would like to come down in person and ask questions, give input, you can, but we'll also be streaming it. We'll also have it virtual, where you can tune in and you can also ask your questions that way. And you have, I believe, the information,
yes, we do.
The location and the time. It's at 6 o'clock tomorrow, and we were intentional about choosing this location on the Dr. King celebration, because who better and what better way for us to begin this conversation?
Right. Now, I think when we talk about racial equity, the word is equity, and sometimes people get the idea that what we're after is a situation in which at the end of the process, everyone is equal and crosses the finish line at the same time, regardless of whether they try. Right. But I think you have an illustration that helps us understand the difference between equity and equality. Help us with that.
Yeah, Pastor, I'm glad you give me that opportunity. So, and he talked about finish line. So the best example I can give is if it's a race, and let's say it's a 200-meter race, and we're all at the starting line at the same time, and the gun goes off, and only one of us leaves at the starting mark, and then 80 meters down the road, then the second person is allowed a second shot, and the second person is allowed to take off. Well, as long as there's an 80-meter head start, I don't care how fast you run, you're not going to be able to catch up. And so what we have to do is we have to say, okay, stop, and allow the person who's 80 meters ahead to stop. Then the person who started second to catch up. And then you can let them both go, and then we can move forward in equality, but once we've established equity.
So we're talking about how the government does certain things. And you had an interesting comment to me earlier when we were talking. You were realizing the government has actually made decisions that have created the way Dallas is. And you woke up one day and said, well, my goodness, now, I'm the government.
Right.
This is us. So what am I going to do, right?
Absolutely.
So help us understand how the decisions that we make as the government have an impact on the future of our city.
Excellent point. You know, as I began to, serve on the council, I was elected in 2015. I've been on the council since then. I began to look at the decisions that we make in terms from a policy standpoint. And I came across a book that was really enlightening. It's called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And in that book, he talks about the fact that a lot of across the country, and he gives specific examples of cities, a lot of decisions that led to the uneven, unlevel playing field that we have were made because of the role of local government. And as your pastor stated so eloquently, I recognize, you know what, I'm in that position now. And so I'm in a position to where we can undo those policies that have created the unequal playing field, and I'm committed to do the work in order to make that happen.
Well, and he's also read, by the way, Colin Yarborough's book, Pave the Way.
Yes.
And so that's been helpful to him, too.
Very much so.
But I just want to conclude by saying thank you for bringing your faith to life.
Yes.
Casey is a member of Truly Missionary Baptist Church, Pastor Donald Parrish Sr., and a terrific congregation, and one of those churches that emphasizes what we all aspire to now, and that is realizing that we can't just do church over here and politics and public life over here, that we have to come together in a creative way. Thank you for bringing your spiritual values to bear, and for representing your faith in this public work.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you for having me. And I invite and encourage you to be a part of this conversation and discussion that will change the future of the city of Dallas.
Thank you,
Pastor.
God bless you.